Hey guys, Trip here, and if you haven't heard, I'm a big fan of World of Warcraft. I've loved the game since I was a little kid. It was the first MMO I played, and it set me off a downward spiral of video game addiction and MMO obsession. Now, I made a video a few weeks ago about how excited I am for all of the gameplay changes coming to the new expansion, Battle for Azeroth. But as excited as I've been for the gameplay, I've also been very concerned about the direction of the story. And the centerpiece of that concern has been regarding the Burning of Teldrassil. Now, if you don't know the controversy surrounding this point in the story, that's fine. Suffice to say, a lot of people are concerned with the portrayal of the Horde in this expansion, particularly its current leader, Sylvanas Windrunner. Long story short, she's been pulling some evil bullshit lately, and our players have kind of been forced to go along with it. But for months, the developers have been assuring us that the war between the Alliance and the Horde will be portrayed as morally gray, with heroes on both sides that will keep us patriotic toward our respective factions. Indeed, for months and months, the developers have assured us that once we see the full story, once we truly learn how and why this landmark, this homeland of one of the game's factions, is being burned down to cinders by the opposing faction, we will understand, we will embrace, we will be crying and begging WoW for forgiveness for ever thinking that they would portray one of the factions as completely morally repugnant. Well, here comes the moment of truth. This is the Burning of Teldrassil. So strap on, strap in, and let's watch this train wreck together.
Secure the beach. Prepare to invade the tree.
Why? You've already won. Only innocents remain in the tree.
This is war.
No. This is hatred. Rage. Windrunner, you were defender of your people. Do you not remember?
I remember. A fool. Take her! Run! Now, you understand. Don't grieve. You'll soon join your loved ones.
I grieve for you. You've made life your enemy. And that is a war you'll never win. You can kill us, but you cannot kill hope.
Can't I? Burn it. Burn it!
So that was about what I was expecting, all things considered. So let's unpack this. Alright, how do I put into words how I feel about Sylvanas' character at this point? Did you guys ever play, or at least hear about that Peach video game Nintendo made like, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago? The whole game was basically an offensive caricature of both the character and women in general. Now, to be fair, that's not saying much for Peach, but this was hilariously beyond the pale. In short, she used her out-of-control emotions to solve puzzles and get through the game. So she would cry and it would cause a rain cloud or something like that. The point of that game was to reverse the whole damsel in distress trope, but ironically they just ended up cementing it even further. For some reason, my mind kept going back to that game while I watched this video. Now, the head writer for the game, Christy Golden, is all about making strong female characters, and being the SJW cuck I am, I'm normally all for that. Hell, I'd love to see some strong female villains as well, and if that's the direction that they were going, then I guess I could be open to it. But that's not what I want from my Warchief, and even if it was, they're not doing a very good job of it. So in their attempt to make a strong female character, they essentially did the opposite by making said character commit genocide because her fifis got hurt. I mean, that is what happened, right? I didn't hallucinate that entire second half of the video, correct? She got her feelings hurt by the Night Elf lady who called her out on her bullshit, and her response was to change her battle plans in the moment from something that, while kind of bad, could still be seen as a justifiable act of war, you know, taking over a city, that sort of thing happened a lot, to annihilating it and everybody on it. Now, yes, I suppose you could argue that this was all a part of her three-dimensional chess, her master plan to eliminate the hope of the Alliance so that they'd be easier to conquer, but that's evil. Like, cartoonishly evil. So either she's a cartoon mustache-twirling villain, or she's an emotionally incompetent caricature of a strong female character. Pick your poison, because I want to kill myself. Not to beat this dead horse, but does anyone remember that early Family Guy episode where Lois runs for mayor, and Tom Tucker's hilariously offensive analysis of the situation?
Which leads many political analysts to ask the question, can a woman really be mayor? Or will she just menstruate all over the city? Stay with us.
Well, now we have Blizzard's answer to that question. But I guess in the grand scheme of things, this isn't the worst thing ever. This isn't anything that the story can't recover from. People do bad things all the time, and regardless of what was said out of universe from the actual developers, in the story of World of Warcraft, I can, one, see this happening, and two, I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world. Now, I would be fine with all of this. All of it. If Blizzard literally didn't do the exact same plotline a few expansions ago. We've done this whole who is the Horde, are we noble savages, or are we evil plotline before. We've done the whole honor versus efficiency and pragmatism. We've done the whole grim dark fascism routine. We did this all in Cataclysm and Mists of Pandaria, and I would argue so far to a much better extent. Granted, I'm still one of those people who wish they didn't turn Garrosh into a generic villain. I honestly think that so many of the problems with the story could have been fixed if they didn't make him go full crazy, but regardless, they're just doing the same thing again. You cannot tell me that everything's going to go back to normal after this. You cannot tell me that with all the stuff we've seen so far, with characters like Varrock Sarfang already defying Sylvanas before this happened, that we're not going to see yet another Warchief be deposed. It's just getting laughable at this point. And honestly, this is me giving Blizzard the benefit of the doubt, because if they're actually going to stick with Sylvanas to keep her in place as Warchief after they spent all of this time telling us that the Horde isn't pure evil, that the Horde does have heroes in it, that we're going to see some sort of moral grayness to it, then what the hell are they doing? How out of touch and idiotic could these people possibly be to think that a large portion of the fan base would be okay with this? They clearly know, they've said it on record, that they understand, and to some extent, they wanted us to be concerned about this moment. They were playing it up in a way that would suggest that we would either be very terrified by all of this and outraged by it, or we'd all have a sigh of relief and be happy that it's not as bad as it initially looked. Well, guess what? It's just as bad as it initially looked, if not worse. And if that is the case, then I cannot see them, and again, this is me giving them the benefit of the doubt, I cannot see them keeping this person in charge of the Horde. You guys have seen the commercials. This is supposed to be the expansion that reinstates faction pride, that reminds us why we don't like each other, that reminds us that yes, sometimes the Horde and Alliance can work together, but they're so culturally and politically different that we're going to come to blows. It's the expansion that's supposed to make each faction feel like the hero in their own war story. And they come out of the gate with this of all things. Look, I mean, if you're one of those people who want the Horde to be this way, who saw their Forsaken and really thought that that should be the whole ethos of the Horde, if you're one of those people who, when you were first playing Vanilla WoW, you started with an undead character and you got the impression that that was what the whole Horde was about, that the Forsaken weren't specifically designed as a single legitimately evil faction that was just barely tolerated by the rest of the Horde out of necessity, then yeah, I can see you enjoying this. I can see this being something that you were wishing would happen. For the rest of us, this is exactly what we were afraid of. This is exactly what we warned about when they decided to put Sylvanas in charge of the Horde. And honestly, all it does for us is make us think Vol'jin was even stupider than he already was for putting her in charge before he died. Speaking of which, where are those spirits now, Vol'jin? You know, the spirits who told you that Sylvanas should be Warchief right before you died. I'd like to have a talk with them and ask them why the fuck they thought this was a good idea. Unless the Loa just have a shitty sense of humor, or they're going to pull some kind of twist where it turns out the old gods were manipulating Vol'jin in his final moments, then this is just a massive plot hole. So I've been complaining a lot, and you're probably wondering, well, Trip, how would you do this better? What would you do differently to really set off the battle for Azeroth? Well, it's simple. I wouldn't have killed off Garrosh. Now, I know I just talked about that, and it sounds like I'm just butthurt over it, but if they had allowed Garrosh to turn into a bit more of a mature, but still kind of savage and honorable, warlike Warchief, like what was kind of implied in the early Cataclysm quest. We thought there was gonna be some sort of growth for the character as opposed to a devolution. Then we wouldn't be in this mess where we're constantly shifting Warchiefs after they either die or go crazy, and we'd have a Warchief who could simultaneously be the Alliance's villain and the Horde's hero. Somebody who could legitimately start a war or perpetuate a war in a way that we could believe and still feel patriotic about. But instead, we're stuck with Sylvanas. Sylvanas, someone who, while a great character, is somebody who never should have been anywhere near the Horde's leadership, never should have even been considered as a war chief, somebody who was perfectly fine and whose faction was perfectly fine being on the fringes of the Horde. That's kind of the symbol that the Forsaken always had since Vanilla WoW. I don't know if this is still the case, but they actually started with a lower reputation with the other Horde factions than anybody else to reflect that idea that, yes, there's the Horde and then there's the Forsaken, who are kind of sort of on the outskirts of the Horde, and no one really trusts them and no one really likes them, but they need them. And as much as I want stories to move forward and evolve, I would rather that stay the same than for them to have gone in the direction they did, making Sylvanas Warchief. Because now, in order to honor who this character is, they have to do insane shit like this, which is going to end up with another Garrosh Raid 2.0. Either that, or they're going to pull some half-assed redemption plotline where Sylvanas completely changes her character and becomes yet another goody two-shoes. That would be almost worse than keeping her as Warchief and having her continue sending the Horde on this downward spiral. Like it or not, this is who Sylvanas is, and this is exactly why she never should have been Warchief. And yet, here we are. going off the rails on this crazy train. Well fuck, I haven't been that mad since the last time I talked about the Elder Scrolls. I've ranted enough on this, and I don't want to act like my opinion on this matter matters more than anybody else's. I just had to get that off my chest. So what I really want is to know what you guys think. What do you think about this cutscene? What do you think about Battle for Azeroth on the whole? If you don't like the direction this story is going, then let me know what you would have done differently. If you do like the way this is going and you think I'm out of my damn mind, then let me know. Let me know why you feel differently than I do about this. I mean, I know I just spent the last 15 minutes sounding like a total dick, but if you do feel differently from me, feel free to let me know, and I'd be happy to discuss this with you. But yeah, that was just something that was on my mind. Hey guys, Trip here. If you liked that video, why not watch some more? Hit that like button and make sure to share this video on Reddit and social media. Have you ever wanted to wear my face like a grizzly pelt? Well, check out Rage On. There you'll find all sorts of psychotrip merchandise to satisfy your grim needs. Give me money to take over the world and I promise I'll be a benevolent dictator. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.